I sat down thinking, yeah, I've been meaning to get back to playing Chesterfield. A nifty mid-range action-adventure game that never got much attention outside of Japan, but a solid game. And then while I was doing my background research, I noticed that there's no Japanese Wikipedia entry for it, and less than a page of Google image results for it, and no entries for it in any of my regular Japanese sources. Yeah, it turns out I was thinking of Romancia. We'll see that one in about a month. The full title of this one in Japanese is Chesterfield Ankoku Shin Enno Chosen, or Challenge the Dark Gods. I'm not sure who the Dark Gods refer to, since the story doesn't mention them at all. The lengthy introduction and ending are completely in English in Chesterfield, something that's baffled Japanese players for a long time. The gist of the story is, the good king dies, his evil general takes over the country, and his daughter and a loyal knight go to the island of Chesterfield to seek aid. They're ambushed, the princess is kidnapped, but a local boy, Kaim, assists the knight, and decides to take up his quest. Chesterfield is a side-scrolling action RPG divided up into 8 stages. As you're roaming around, the B button swings your weapon, the A button jumps. Select brings up this option menu, where you have the ability to switch which weapon you're using. There's no equipment management, all of that is handled automatically. You start out with 100 health, and your maximum health is 200 points. That maximum does not change with what level you are. The enemies that you fight may drop potions or hearts that will give you a little bit of life back, or they could drop money bags. And unsurprisingly, you're going to have to grind for a lot of cash. You've got to buy your weapons and armor upgrades, and those are not cheap. Plus, it costs a lot of money to just get your password. Each stage consists of an overworld and a dungeon, and neither of them are really straightforward. The overworld has doors you can go into for shops, getting advice from people, or a guy who won't let you continue until you defeat the boss. There's also a boss at the end of every overworld area. Though if you defeat it and haven't collected the treasure from the dungeon, you're going to be in real trouble in the next section. There are 4 shops you have to worry about: a weapon shop, an armor shop, a medicine shop, and the inn. Rather confusingly, nobody seems to want to get straight to business in Chesterfield. You go into these places and the person talks to you, and then you have to talk to them again to get them to offer to show you their wares, and then you have to say yes, you would like to see them, and then you can select the item that you want by hitting left and right and choosing take. At the inn, the woman first offers to let you sleep for 2 hours, but if you reject that, then she offers a room for the night. Both of those heal you to the maximum 200 hit points, but only staying overnight gets you a password. Armor is equipped automatically, so we don't need to talk about that. The alternate weapon you can get, though, is a mace, and that is something you have to switch on and off on your status screen. The game seems to alternate giving you maces and swords. They're identical when it comes to enemies, so just use whichever one's stronger there. The advantage of the sword is that it can stab upward or at an angle. The mace's advantage is that it can smash through bricks. So obviously, it's required to get through some areas. It's also required to find some shops, because people have been bricking up their stores. As you wander around fighting, you'll find that enemies always spawn in the same place, and if you walk a little distance away, they'll respawn, so that's how you'll have to do your grinding for money. When you're hit by enemies, you kind of freeze in place for a moment. It looks a bit odd, and falling down holes in the overworld is instantly fatal. There's a complication there because the game moves in a really jerky fashion. It feels more like an MSX game than a Famicom game with how jerky it moves. That also makes the platforming kind of annoying. Especially these moving platforms. You have to land on them dead center and jump off them before you rotate around. When you die, you go back to the title screen, and there is no continue option, but pressing start takes you to the beginning of the stage where you died, and half your money has been taken away. If you've just made a big purchase, it's not a bad idea to just throw yourself off the cliff. You'll get your life back, hardly lose any money, and get a chance to grind up for more. The dungeons are the worst part of Chesterfield. There are these effectively identical sets of rooms. The enemies change, the exits on the sides change, and you might get a ladder. But even with that, all the rooms look pretty identical. The labyrinth has a bad tendency to scroll infinitely, or have one-way doors, or jump around as you pass through certain rooms. And since everything looks identical, it makes mapping a real nightmare. What you want to do in the dungeon is find this boss. They're not too tough, so after you beat them up, a treasure chest will appear, and you take that to get the treasure of the stage. On stage 1, it's a key. That opens up a door early in stage 2. On stage 2, the treasure's a lamp, because all of the dungeons in stage 3 onward are dark. Metroid, this ain't. With the boss defeated and the treasure collected, you still have to make your way out of the dungeon. And thanks to the non-Euclidean geometry, that can be a feat in and of itself. Once you're out, you just progress to the end of the overworld, defeat the boss that's there, even if you've already defeated it once, and tell the old man just past it that you're ready to go on to the next stage. I definitely advise getting everything that you want before you go on, though. Prices go up when you move between stages. For example, this sword costs 100 right here, but it's 200 on the next stage. So grind where you are and get the item you need. So I think it's pretty obvious that Chesterfield isn't a good game. The action is just way too clunky. Fighting fast-moving enemies winds up being frustrating. You'll stun them for a moment, but then you can't swing before they're unstunned. And the dungeons aren't fun to figure out, so you might as well just follow a guide. Chesterfield also is not the best programmed game. In a dungeon, crouch and hit select. When you exit the menu, you'll have dropped down a bit, and you can use this to phase right through floors. There's also a code that you can enter on the status screen that makes you indestructible. When you run out of life, you just pop back up to 100 hit points like you had a potion, and if you fall into a pit, you appear at the top of the screen. That cheat code might be the most amusing thing about Chesterfield. It just comes across as the bargain basement knockoff of Link's Adventure. And that's a game nobody was asking for.